as always on the show, we do like to start the week off with a little bit of inspiration, and today is no exception, as we have a very special guest here with us in the studio. I don't know if you've been watching lately on TV. There's been loads of different TV programmes, from Lie to Me, and then you've got Darren Brown on TV as well. Have you been interested in picking up on body language? Have you ever wondered how you can tell if somebody's telling you the truth or not? Well, today's inspirational guest is body language and micro-expressions expert Craig James Baxter, and he's here today to share some top tips, some tools and some words of inspiration on how you can use these different skills to spot lying and deception, and how you can help yourself in the flirting and dating arena. So do stay tuned. We're coming right up after a little. Hope your Monday's off to a good start. And as always, we do like to start the week off with a little bit of inspiration. And today's inspirational guest, very intriguing, I must say. Gosh, today's show, you are going to love it. We have inspirational guest Craig James Baxter here with us in the studio today, talking all about how to spot lying and deception. So a huge welcome to you, Craig.
Hello, thank you very much, Sarah. Hello.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well.
Are you having a good start to the week?
Not too bad. I've been in Florida for a couple of weeks, and now I'm back to the UK, and the weather is appalling. It's nice and warm in America.
Goodness. So you've come from that beautiful sunshine.
I have, yes.
To the cold.
I know, the freezing cold.
You didn't bring any sun back with you?
No, sadly not. No. There was. It's a bit weird listening to Christmas music in America when it's blue sky and 80 degrees. Then you come back to Great Britain, it's pouring down, it's freezing, and it's still a Christmas song. So you can't get your head around it.
Absolutely. Are you starting to get in the Christmas spirit?
Get in there now. I must say, being in America when it was hot and hearing Christmas songs, it doesn't really paint the picture of Christmas. So now I'm back home. I'm trying to adjust to Christmas life, but I'm getting there. I'm steadily getting there.
Have you done your Christmas shopping yet?
Most of it, yes. I've bought my lovely missus most of my things on the computer. However, I do need to sneak into town at some point next week, so I'll be doing that casually. Yes, I will. But thankfully, I'm quite tall, so I can elbow people out the way, especially with this body language thing. It's quite good, actually. So
absolutely. It's like what you always find on Christmas Eve. It's usually, just men struggling, fighting over the last present on the shelf. That's and what have you, doing the last minute Christmas shopping. Well, Christmas is just round the corner, isn't it, with less than 2 weeks to go. And we've got a fascinating subject that we're talking about today, one that I think everybody is intrigued in.
Massively.
With the likes of TV programmes that have been on lately, you've obviously got Lie to Me and Darren Brown, who's a master at this as well.
Yes, of course, yeah, that's true.
So how did you get into being a body language expert and reading micro-expressions? Is it something that you've always been interested in?
I think, ever since I was at school, really, and then I moved into my college years, and I've always had an interest in how people communicate, and I've always thought that people say a lot more with their actions and mannerisms and gestures than they do verbally. So I just started to read books and then look at, DVDs, and I started watching programmes like Lie to Me all those years ago, and eventually just start learning the craft, basically. There's a lot of research done about non-verbal communication, which is called kinesics, but it's more about allowing people to understand what true body language is, because there's so many myths and misconceptions out there about body language that people often get the wrong idea. So what I'm going to do today is to talk about the actual dynamics about lying and deceptive behaviour, because you hear all these myths associated with people looking a certain direction or eye contact, which have no research at all. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you about how to really spot a liar.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Can't wait. Watch out, world.
Yes, definitely.
There we go. So also as well, you've done lots of video analysis as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's one of my main areas. Is if you go onto my YouTube account, just type in CJ Baxter onto YouTube with 2 X's, you'll see about 70 to 80 video analysis or video tutorials that I've done on certain celebrities, politicians, criminals, things like that. And what I do is I break down their behaviour and educate people on what's happening silently. So it's all about the gestures and the expressions and the mannerisms, understanding the hidden meaning about what's actually going on. Because more often than not, during high stakes interviews, people will often lie and fabricate information. And when people start to lie, they start leaving certain cues and clues associated with deception. So what I do is I freeze those moments down and I educate the audience and the viewer about what exactly is happening now and what's happening in the body. because obviously the autonomic nervous system kicks in, which shows signs of stress, and that stress starts to leak out through the body, through the verbal channels like your speech, and the non-verbal channels through your body language. So that's what I do on YouTube. So my YouTube videos have just ticked over to 400,000 hits in about 6 months, which is fantastic, and they've been played all around the world and roughly in about 46 different countries, and they've been translated into other languages as well. So I'm very blessed to have a team of people working.
Fantastic.
So yes, I'm very blessed.
Can somebody be very good at lying then?
They can. They can. Yeah, and the trouble with lying is there's so many different aspects to it. You've got high stakes, you've got low stakes. The problem with lying is when you embed a lie into an otherwise truthful statement. Let's say, for instance, that I want to conceal my whereabouts yesterday, which was Sunday. But let's say, for instance, I went to the gym on Saturday. So all I've got to do is recall information that's true that happened on Saturday, but just say I did it yesterday. So actually the lie itself is on the day. What I actually did was truthful. And that's where liars often get away with the deceit, because things like that are not detectable, because you're looking for signs of lying, but what I was actually talking about is actually the truth. So it's things like that are difficult for people like me to catch out, because my job is to analyse the verbal and non-verbal statements, because obviously the lie is within the word itself. But if what I'm actually talking about is truthful on a different day, it becomes very difficult. So it could be, so people have got a misconception that deception can be caught quite easily, when in fact it can't be. There are more verbal cues to deception than non-verbal. And don't forget, there's no gesture akin to Pinocchio's nose. There's no one movement or gesture a liar does throughout the world. Everyone's different.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting deceptive behaviour. But you hear all these misconceptions about people saying, oh, liars avoid eye contact and liars look up and write and things like that. Those have absolutely no science or research to suggest that is the case. And more often than not, liars will actually give you more eye contact because they think that that's a sign of truthfulness. So they'll actually encourage the eye contact.
Yeah,
exactly, which is very intimidating for a kickoff. Yeah. But it's actually a complete and utter myth. There are more reliable cues to deception than eye behaviour.
So we are a nation that sometimes likes to exaggerate a little bit,
massively, yeah.
Not so much as lie, I suppose, but we do like to exaggerate and extend the truth, make things a little bit more interesting sometimes.
That's right.
I bet your friends really hate being around you sometimes if they're telling a really good story, and they might throw a little bit of extra information in there, exaggerate a little bit.
That's it.
And you're there and you just know that it's a lie.
Yeah, unfortunately that is the case. Most of my training is in deception and things like that, but what I do is I don't say anything. If I know full well something isn't true, I'll just keep my mouth shut, because there's nothing worse than going, actually that never happened because your left eyebrow twitched twice. There's nothing like that at all. So there's no point in me publicly condemning someone for things like that. But one of the best ways to catch a lie, which I'll discuss later on, is with the speech. You'll find that if someone's got to make something up, it becomes cognitively demanding to try and think the lie up, so their speech will become a lot slower. So listen for that. It's an excellent cue to look for. If you hear a story that sounds like it's quite well rehearsed, another cue as well. Liars like to rehearse what they're saying, but the problem comes in is the lack of gestures they make. And the biggest myth about liars is they appear nervous. That's not true. Truth tellers appear nervous, so the disbelief that they're not going to be believed. Whereas liars know full well that if they show signs of nervousness, then they might be caught out during the lie. So what liars do, they do something called attempted behavioural control. So they'll try and act like someone who's honest, but their mannerisms and gestures are a lot less reliable than someone who's telling the truth.
So can you tell even just by the sound of somebody's voice whether or not they're telling the truth? So for example, if somebody was at work, say a manager was at work, and you always get the people that ring in, they're not well, and sometimes they might not be as ill as they're making out, for example.
True,
Can you tell by the sound of someone's voice?
Yes and no. In that situation it'd be very difficult because the lie itself is relatively small. It's a low stakes lie. It doesn't take much to cognitively make that lie up and remember the lie as well. But if it was something more serious like an affair or a theft at work, then definitely, because the speech plays an important and integral role in detecting deception. Liars often have a higher pitch rate, and also their speech becomes a lot slower because they're trying to cognitively think about something that's never happened. Also, the immediacy, which is when you ask me a question, how long it takes me to reply. A truthful person will rely almost instantly because they know full well what they're saying is truthful. Like Mark Twain said, the good thing about the truth is you don't have to remember anything. anything. With liars, they do. They've got to think about which lie they've said, who was involved, or what time did they say, who else was there. They've got a lot of things happening at once, and often they can't get that out quick, so they'll think of something. What they might do is mirror the question back to you, like say, what time did you come in last night? What time did I come in last night? Oh, about 6:30. So that little bit of time then gives them time to recreate, whereas you think there's nothing wrong with mirroring a question back.
Sometimes, don't you think, though, when you're actually asked or interrogated, say, for example, it was by the police, you do tend to feel a little bit nervous anyway,
Absolutely,
even if you are telling the truth.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was at the traffic lights the other day and the police pulled up next to me, and automatically you tend to feel a little bit...
You come on edge. And the reason why you do that is because you're afraid that they're going to pin the crime on you. You're afraid that mistakes are going to be made. In this case, if you're being interviewed by the police and they're going to point the finger at you, whereas a guilty person is hoping that will happen, whereas an innocent person is hoping, God, I hope they don't put the thing on me, whereas a guilty person will think, well, I hope they get this wrong and they find somebody else for him. So that's why you clam up during interviews, and that's often why one of the biggest myths about lie deception is that police and interrogators get the wrong end of the stick when it comes to deception. If they mistake nervous behaviour for someone who's telling the truth, that's called the Othello error, and it comes from the Shakespeare play where Othello kills his wife's alleged mistress when she would think he was having an affair, when in fact she wasn't. So Othello mistook the deception signs for truthful signs. So that's where it comes into play, that nailing deception has, if you don't nail it, it has dire consequences for everyone concerned.
Absolutely. I mean, there has been lots of programmes on TV as well where murders have been committed and terrible crimes, and we have the family of the victim who's been on TV, and they're giving a huge plea out to the nation. If anybody knows any information, please come forward and help us to solve this crime. And then it turns out months or even years down the line that it was actually the person given the plea that committed the murder or the crime.
True.
And they say that sometimes when they've rewound the videotape and they can see certain micro-expressions and things on their face where they might have for a split second smiled in between giving this plea and looking sad.
That's true, yeah. I've picked up on things like that. There was a case not so long ago, I think it was a Shannon Matthews case, where the mum was involved with the kidnapping. Those kind of behaviours were seen throughout those interviews. And it's very difficult because those kind of lies that she's telling are very high-stake lies now. The whole world's looking for a child. So then the lie becomes more difficult to start catching, you see, because when a liar has to cognitively try and think of something on the time, on the spot, it inhibits movement. So if you think about a nervous person, your misconception is they'll show nervous body language. However, a liar will often not show that, because cognitively thinking about something strenuous will stop all those little fidgeting things going on. So actually, little fidgets and things often appear with a truth teller. The thing with, like you said there, about people going on national TV to find somebody, they've got to experience behavioural control. They've got to show the signs of someone in distress. And often, if you start replaying information back, their behaviour does not fit the situation it merits. And that is often how you find out someone is lying, because what they're doing and what they're showing and experiencing and expressing isn't what the situation would demand. So that's how Shannon Matthews, obviously there was more inconsistencies in the story and the plausibility, and eventually everything came out. But the way she was acting was very suspicious to someone, for a daughter going missing and being kidnapped. You'd be distraught, you'd be frantic. However, we didn't see that kind of behaviour in that case. Everyone's different. You've got to look at the personality traits of somebody, like if they're an introvert or an extrovert. But you think the general consensus is if your child went missing, you'd be frantic and you would not stop looking.
Absolutely. And what about things like these Celebrity Big Brother and all these jungle programmes and what have you?
Yeah, that's true as well, yeah.
People go in there and I suppose they want to portray themselves in a certain light, don't they? So, but how long can they actually keep that up before their natural
Very difficult.
behaviours come
and the
through?
trouble with these programmes is they're heavily edited. The editor and the producer can make someone out to be however they want. If they want to make them out to be the baddie, they'll only show the bad bits of them. So you don't get a true and accurate reflection of someone based on a TV show. However, I'm very blessed to say that recently a body language analysis I've done is on two celebrities, Alex Reid and Chantel Horton, and I've done quite a few analysis on their videos, and they actually look really strong, which is very surprising for me, because I'm usually I don't usually give the green light when it comes to celebrities. I think the whole thing's for money and things, but actually these two look really good. And I've just heard that Chantel's going to have a baby soon in next June, and they've actually given me some great feedback, both of those, Chantel and Alex, so I'm very blessed at that. But things like Big Brother, it's all manipulated to appear one way. And I often think the winner, you often know who the winner's going to be on the first week anyway, because obviously there's someone in there who's more of an extrovert than somebody else, and you can often find out who the winner is more often than not. But same with The Apprentice this year. I always knew Tom was going to win from the very start because of his demeanour and his manner, and hey ho, he won.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. So we're going to see you on one of these shows soon.
Hopefully,
Body language expert.
Yeah, next year. Hopefully, all being well next year.
Big year, 2012.
Definitely, all being well. Fingers crossed.
Fantastic. So you're sticking around today, aren't you?
Yeah,
You're
absolutely,
going to be sharing some top tips, even in the world of flirting and dating.
Massive.
So with 2012 just around the corner, if you are looking to find love, do stay tuned. We're coming up with some top tips right after. Lined up for you today as we are talking all things body language. So how to spot lying and deception, and how to use your body language as your secret weapon. This is fascinating stuff, and I am joined today by body language and micro-expressions expert Craig James Baxter. So Craig, you've done loads of video analyses, haven't you?
That's right, yes.
All
yeah,
over
about 80.
YouTube.
Yes.
Absolutely loads. You've had loads of hits, haven't you?
Yeah,
like
400,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm hoping to hit 1 million by Christmas next year.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of people have watched my videos.
Just shows you how fascinated though people are in this kind of
that's
stuff.
exactly right.
Something that appeals to all of us,
that's
isn't
exactly right. Yeah, it's taken off massively now. I mean, when I first started, I was getting like a few hundred hits now and again, and then it was only up until about maybe a month ago when I had the big one, and it was this lady called Mariah has gone on TV in America saying that Justin Bieber has fathered her little baby boy, and she did an interview, and I analysed it, and then before I know it, I've had 180,000 hits on that video alone, and that video has been played it's been played all around the world. And how to detect her body language is when she's talking about intimacy with Justin Bieber. What people do with their hands, it's a subconscious gesture. When they're talking about intimacy and people being together, they'll interlock their hands together to show visually about what they're saying, so it matches the verbal communication we're talking about. Trouble is when Mariah's talking about her and Justin, her hands are so far apart. There's no intimacy because, in my opinion, that story never happened. Obviously, Justin's going to do a DNA test to prove that he's not the father, but there's so many inconsistencies in her story that suggest that she's not telling the truth. And especially when you say no comment to questions, that's ridiculous. If you're telling the truth, you want people to know about it. You don't want to hide the truth. So saying no comment and gestures and expressions, and if you watch the video back, if you go onto my YouTube channel, you can see it. You'll see signs of she's having to really think hard about what she's saying. And again, that comes with additional cognitive load, meaning she's just creating and pulling things out of thin air, and she's not rehearsed a story enough to make it convincing. And that's the problem with lying and deception, you see. And that's where people get stuck when they lie, and that's where you say, no comment, and it just looks terrible, you know what I mean? It just confounds your guilt, even if you're not. So it's no good. But my YouTube page is going really well. My Understanding Body Language Liars, Cheese and Happy Pete page on Facebook is going really well as well. I've had, I think I'm up to like nearly 1,300 hits on there as well. So it's going really well. I'm getting the respect of my peers as well. I mean, I speak to quite a lot of eminent body language people like Joe Navarro and Dr. Matsumoto, who are eminent in the non-verbal communication world. So I'm learning from the best, and I'm trying to educate my followers on the right practice and trying to get rid of some of the myths associated with non-verbal communication.
Absolutely. So we're dying to know. Well, I am anyway. So top tips, how can you spot if someone is lying? Okay, right. You hear all these rubbish myths about eye contact and eye direction and things like that. That's not true. So the first thing I must say is disregard eye contact, because eye behaviour, which I'm going to talk about in the flirting and dating world, is heavily rehearsed. So you cannot rely on eye behaviour as being an indicator of deception. Like I said before, there are more verbal cues to deception than visual. So disregard what you're seeing. It's all about what you're hearing. So the first one is about the pitch of a voice. A liar will often increase the pitch of his voice when he's lying. The second one is his speech rate. It will often become slower. And the reason for that is if the lie is cognitively demanding, so we're talking about a high-stakes lie, he's got to create. And in order for him to create, he's got to think about it, and thus his speech becomes a lot slower. Watch out for that one. The next one is the false smile. Now then, obviously I do a lot about micro-expressions, like you said. 43 muscles of the face, capable of creating up to about 10,000 different facial expressions. The fake smile comes in when you do not engage the muscle at the corner of the eye,
which is called the orbicularis oculi. So if I was to do a test with you about fake smiles, after about 10 minutes you'll be able to understand what a fake smile is. And a fake smile just engages the cheekbones. So if you see a lot of that kind of expression just with the cheekbones throughout a story, it is an indicator, a very weak indicator of potential deception, because they're not experiencing what they're talking about, and they're not experiencing it because the corner of the eye is not engaging. If you think about when you're really happy, you'll feel your eye muscle kicking in the corner of the eye. That's an indicator as well. The next one is the immediacy. Like I said before, if the lie is cognitively demanding, their lie will not speak straight away. A truth teller will often speak straight away when asked a question, but a liar won't, because a liar needs to recall the information, what he said. Obviously, he's fabricating information, so he's trying to place himself. Oh, what did I say then? Where was I? And you've got to think about this silently, and then you've got to start talking about it. And the next one is head movements. Head movements are an indicator of deception. It's the head looking down like that. So it's almost like a persuasive gesture. And a liar will use this to try and gauge your reaction. Don't forget, a good liar will often read the other person to see if he's actually being believed. And that's what a liar does with a persuasive head nod. Your boss will do this sometimes. When you're asked if you can do some overtime, we do some overtime, the head will look down and the eyes will go up. It's a very submissive gesture. Liars do that as well. So the final one is about the plausibility, and that's where liars often fail, is the lies are just not plausible enough. They've not been well thought out enough, and cracks appear. So like I said before, so disregard actual body language with deception, because there's no cue associated with deception. Research has suggested it's more verbal. It's called paralinguistic, speed, tone, volume, and pitch. So you don't necessarily need to see somebody to indicate deception. You just need to be able to hear them. But again, with all these things, you need to know about someone's baseline and culture and ethnic background and things like that, things that have an influence on someone's behaviour. So detecting deception is tremendously hard work. So just to recap, the best ways to detect deception is the pitch of someone's voice, speech rate, the false smile, which the orbicularis oculi at the corner of the eye doesn't engage. We've also got head movements. We've got immediacy, about speaking straight away, and the plausibility. And they are a research method over the past 30 years that those are the best indicators of deception. And not one of those criteria indicates that any non-verbal channels reveal deception. And that's where people mistake. People think liars are nervous. They're not. Truth tellers are often more nervous because they're afraid that you're not going to be believed. Like you said before about when you felt nervous about a police car passing you. Often truth tellers will appear more nervous in a police investigation. Liars will not. Liars will experience more behavioural control because they don't want to appear they're nervous, because then the signs of nervousness will be associated with deception.
Fantastic. I bet you're great at poker, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I don't play.
reading
people's expressions and gestures, and that's where behavioural control comes in there, you see. People have got a good hand, they'll naturally feel jubilant, so they're trying to control that. And if you study my analysis videos on YouTube, you'll be able to pick up things that people do when they're secretly happy.
So body language then and micro-expressions, say you're trying to appear more confident, and there's a lot of people that have been made redundant this year.
Yes.
And are looking for new jobs, new careers, especially going into 2012, and say they've got interviews coming up and they want to appear more confident. How can we use our body language?
Yeah, well, the first thing I always say is dress sense. That's the first thing I always look at, is making sure you look the part, because obviously your first impression stage from employer is what you look like. You know what I mean? So making sure you got a good hairstyle, you clean shaven, you've got good clothes. Next thing, you want to be using open palm gestures. The last thing you want to be doing is folding your arms or folding your legs. It creates a terrible barrier for you and the interviewer to get through. Also, a good example I'm doing is using the steepling gesture now and again. It's basically where you place your hands together in front of you, interlocked at the fingertips, and just placing it like that. It shows you've got confidence in what you're saying. But if you use it too much, it looks smug. So you've got to find when the right time to use it. So the best time to use your steepling gesture is when you're talking about things you've done. Like, let's say, for instance, you had a good track record at work, you were a top salesperson, you were reliable, you were trustworthy, you dealt with money. That's a good time to use a steepling gesture, because it backs up silently what you're saying, and a potential employee will see that and see that you're actually credible. So little things like that are good. You want to try and avoid anything like any scratching, any like hand-to-face gestures, anything around the neck which shows signs of stress and nervousness. You want to try and avoid that, but often at times it can be quite difficult. So in essence, you're using behavioural control throughout your interview. So you're working things that you've potentially research when you're lying. So it's all interlinked. If you're using behavioural control when you're lying, you should have good behavioural control during an interview, and that's why actors get away with this so many times.
Absolutely. So what do you think then about these programmes that are on TV? So you've got the likes of Jeremy Kyle and all these other shows that are on, and they have the lie detector test. I mean, is that successful in your opinion?
Yes and no. I'm not a big fan of it. The lie detector detects these things that we can't control, which is a branch of the autonomic nervous system. So it looks things like breathing rate, blood pressure, skin conduction, things like that. Things that we can't generally alter. The trouble with the lie detector is it just detects signs of stress, but it doesn't tell you what you're stressed about. It's quite difficult. Like, for instance, that if a truth teller's on the lie detector, he'll be worried that this machine isn't very accurate. And if he knows that this lie detector is not accurate, he might spike some of the questions because he might just show signs of nervousness for anything. So what it looks for is indicators of guilt. Or indicators of the stress happening in the body. But let's say, for the example I always give is if, let's say that £10 has gone missing from, Salford City Radio's cash tin, and we're all polygraphed, and let's say, for instance, 2 days ago I've murdered somebody, but no one knows about it. When I'm being put through the polygraph test and I'm being asked questions about my whereabouts, stuff like that, I'm going to spike that polygraph. I'm going to fail it because of the stress and guilt I feel about what I've done elsewhere, not about the £10 being missing. I could be completely innocent, but because your internal stress is being kicked in, heart rate's going higher, your blood pressure's going higher, your lung function, your breathing rate's becoming a lot shallower and a lot deeper, which is signs of anxiety. I'm going to fail a polygraph. I'm going to be, sent to court for this £10 when in fact I've not actually nicked him. Obviously, I've just killed my girlfriend, of course. But yeah, just disregard that bill. I got acquitted for that. Yeah, it was manslaughter. So that's that. So the polygraph is good in some respects so that it can detect things that we can't generally see. But it's not the be-all and end-all. It's not as accurate as people think it is.
So do you think there could be people that have been falsely
accused? Oh, yeah. Both on the polygraph and during a police investigation. If you think about it, if a policeman wrongly suspects a truth teller is lying because he's showing signs of nervousness, often they will subject a truth teller to a more severe interrogation than someone who's guilty.
Yeah.
And often people will just say, I did it to stop the interrogation, and then we'll go to jail. And then obviously, but things like that don't happen as much anymore with breakthroughs in DNA and science.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's got to be evidence to suggest someone's guilt. That comes in with like DNA evidence and things like that. And but hopefully, if people research deception, they'll see that signs of nervousness are not necessarily linked to deception.
Absolutely. Fascinating
stuff. World it is.
It is. So, when you meet people for the first time, can you always pick up on different signs, whether or not they're telling the truth?
No, not necessarily telling the truth. That kind of behaviour needs to be, I need to see them. I need to see what their baselines are. I need to know what they do. I need to know what ethnic origin they are, what culture they're from. They could be from different parts of the world. They could have picked up on things. So not necessarily, but I can always see when people are anxious or nervous or stressed. Things that flash on the face. I always get a good indication of how they perceive me as well, judging by how close they stand to me, how much strength they give me on the handshake, about what they say, what they do. Generally, most people are light-hearted when they meet me for the first time because Carl goes, this is Craig, he does body language, and you're like, oh God, what are they going to say next?
I was going to say.
Like, hello, I'm Craig, don't worry about it, it's okay, it's not really, your left eye's twitching, you're nervous, are you? No, nothing like that, no. So it's generally always good, but it can become quite, at work, especially I work with clients and things like that. As soon as they get wind I do body language, they go silent, and that's a classic limbic freeze response to fear, because they think, oh God, this guy can read and people have misconceptions that I can read everything, whereas in fact you can't. But people get the wrong end of the stick again.
Well, that's it. You do tend to feel a little bit nervous, don't you?
You do, yeah. You think,
especially if you like to tell a good story.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to be found out.
Yeah. That's a problem. If it's a long story, then chances are I'll be able to detect something that potentially didn't happen.
We'll have to watch what I say, won't we?
Yeah.
Well, you are staying around today, so we're going to be talking about flirting and dating as well, aren't we? Yes. How you can use your body language to attract a partner.
Yes, massively,
and how you can spot the signs of flirting as well, and if somebody's interested in you.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at that later on, yeah. A lot of flirting and dating comes from women through the eyes. Like we said before about deception, deception and eye movement are not related. It's because it's so well rehearsed. Women will often use eye movements to try and encapsulate a guy. And obviously it's a submissive gesture with the head down, eyes up. But often, sometimes, at eye contact, men get the wrong end of the stick. They'll see a girl looking at him in the club and thinks, oh, hello, she likes me. Whereas actually just being polite because she's scanning their rooms looking for other people. Whereas a guy will go and approach on the first look and then he looks like a right idiot because he's misread the signs. I'm sure that's happened to every guy walking God's green earth. So with dating and flirting, it's consistent signs of flirting you should look for, not just one gesture or one clue, because you'll make a right fool of yourself. Guys, listen to this. First thing I must say is with eye movement, it's all flirting is all done by the lady. Okay, if you can try as much as you can, but it's all got to be done by the lady. If she likes you, she will let you know silently. So the first thing to look for is the eye movement. Okay, if she gives you the eye from around the club, look for the third, the fourth, the fifth look in your direction. If you catch eyes and watch out for that little half smile, it's the green light to go over. Whereas often men misread that, thinking, well, she keeps smiling, why don't you come over? So no, it doesn't work like that. You've got to make all the effort. And while you're walking over to her, different things happen. With a lady, she'll try and make herself look as submissive as possible. Okay, so she'll just be messing with her hair, she'll be adjusting things here, she'll be sitting upright, so look a little bit like this. Whereas a guy who walks over there, he'll be adjusting his belt, he'll be just rolling his sleeves up slightly so we can see his arms, he'll be sucking his gut in, that's the first thing he'll be doing, and he'll be trying to make himself look as masculine as possible. And when you get there, it's all the embarrassing icebreaker. There's no need to do some corny chat-up line because you've already had silently the first impression thing going as well. And gentlemen, I must say, on that walk over there, that woman is assessing you. She's silently reading you. She's checking you out. Your suitability as a partner, your dress sense, your hairstyle, your beard, anything like that has all been silently checked out. So by the time you've got over there, you've already been vetoed.
Well and truly checking you out. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So are men and women's body language more or less the same then? Or are there things that women do that are different to men?
Oh, it's massively different, yeah. It's massive, especially the dirty and the flirting one. The woman will often try and make herself more submissive as possible. If a guy would did that, made himself more submissive as possible, it would be very off-putting because obviously the conception that a man is meant to be, masculine and quite strong, or if he comes across as quite feminine, it doesn't really go with the stereotypical view of dating. Same with a woman, she wants to make herself as submissive as possible, you see, and that's where a good relationship starts forming. Obviously the personality traits between the two are that comes later, but the initial attraction stage, it's all comes through the woman.
And what if someone's just really, really shy?
That's difficult. Again, if really, really shy, it often that impression looks like she's not really interested, and a guy will misread the signs. But shyness, it all comes throughout the smile. If you know how to look for a real smile by looking at the corner of the eye, you'll know that she's actually genuinely happy. If she's giving you a social smile, which is just here, things are not going as well. So if you can read someone's facial expressions, you know how well it's going, regardless if they're an introvert, which is the shy or quite recluse in social situations, or whether they're an extrovert. So personality types and flirting are very much linked. But guys, it's all about non-verbal communication. When it comes to flirting, you need to make sure you nail it because you need to give off those good impressions.
So using your body language as your secret weapon.
Massively, yeah. So research it, guys.
Research it. So do stay tuned. We're going to be sharing some top tips on how you can spot lying and deception and how you can use your body language as your secret weapon. Also, do send us in your song requests. We are going to be playing some Christmassy songs today, getting in the festive spirit. You can text us your song request to 60777. That's 60777. We have a song up next. This is for Lisa in Manchester. I believe.